الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ورضي الله تعالى عن سادة التابعين وعلماء العاملين وأئمة الأربعة المجتهدين ومقلديهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, when I do my classes, even though I know to some people it can seem redundant, like, I give the greetings and then you all come on here and I return the greetings to y'all. It could be, to some people, it could be redundant, but for me, I still like doing it because I like to show and really communicate that I appreciate you all joining me. So, so my brother keep giving the greetings. He's be in the middle of end of the lesson and somebody come and give the greetings. He'll stop, give the greetings, because I really appreciate y'all being here, alhamdulillah. So with that being said, wa alaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh for Isa, Baron, and Farouk again. You gave the greetings here twice. Zakaria, Imari, alhamdulillah. SubhanAllah, we're going through the book that you have on the screen, Quran, written by Sheikh Uthman Danfodio, Tagammadahu lahu bi rahmati, Ameen. May Allah envelop him in his mercy, Ameen. And I made my intentions not to try to rush through the book. I wanted to go slow. And so, we just really got into the text yesterday. I don't intend to move any further along in the text because there's some things I want to read about the Sheikh's biography before we move further, because I think that when you have a better idea of who you're taking from, you will really appreciate the information that's communicated. And at the same time, today's class may be a little abbreviated because, we try our best not to conflict with each other, because we want, when I say we, the imams that we're aligned with, like Imam Amir Muhammad and Imam Fahim, we try to make sure that we don't have classes at the same time. Sometimes it's inevitable, right? And so we try to keep those things in mind. So Imam Amin is going to start doing some afternoon classes as well. He knows I do my classes at 5:30. So, and I believe today he's having a post-Asr reflection at 6:30. So, and I really want participate in that myself, and I don't want to take my class into his class, which is at 6:30. So that's why my class is going to be a little bit abbreviated. I started late because I had a light breakfast, and and then after that I made some nice coffee, right? And I don't know about many of you, but if I don't really have a lot of food in my stomach and I drink some nice coffee, after a while I get shaky and jittery and all that kind of stuff. And I was feeling like that right around class time. So I put something in my stomach. So that's why we're about 15 minutes late. I was eating. Alhamdulillah. Wa alaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Imari, Nadim, Samira, alhamdulillah. Muti, alhamdulillah. Yeah, so I want to mention some of those things that I said I was going to mention today. And they're really going to be coming from two books. I mentioned one book written by Mohammed Bello, his son, called Infaqul Maysur. I want to read another section of that. And then I'm going to read portions from another book called Rawdatul Janan, written by another person that I also mentioned already, and we also read a little bit from his book. It's the Gardens or the Meadows of Paradise. And that book is primarily dealing with the miracles of the Sheikh. So one book is like about the history and a lot of the major events that took place. And another book is dealing with some of the miracles of the Sheikh. And a lot of these miracles that we're going to be reading from today have to do with his confrontation with corrupt leaders. So let me just get into it, inshallah. And again, I have the Arabic here, but because of time, some of the English may not flow right because I told you the English translator, the one who translated the English, is like English is not his strongest suit. So he has in his section history of the jihad, the loftiness of his affair, and the beginning of the ruler's envy. Now remember, he's talking about his father, Sheikh Uthman bin Fodio, the author of the book we're going through. He said he kept on teaching matters obligatory on the individuals to the masses and explained various sciences to the scholars, alongside training disciples and the upright ones. So in other words, he was teaching the Far'ain to the masses, the common people. And he was explaining or giving specialized classes to the scholars. And he was giving spiritual training to his murids and the people who wanted to rectify their character and be amongst the salihin and the awliya, right? He guided them to the etiquettes of attending classes until he transformed the masses into theologists. And this is another point that's extremely important. What did he say? Let's read the sentence again. He guided them to the etiquettes of attending classes until he transformed the masses into theologists. This is a very important point. Let's even think about in our time. Those of you who attend Imam Amin Muhammad's classes, when he recommended books, what's the first book that he recommended? I got it right behind me somewhere. The Etiquette of the Learner. And see, a lot of people don't understand is that in order for you to benefit from something, a ni'mah or a blessing, you have to have proper adab. You have to have perfect mannerism. You have to approach that thing properly, or you're not going to get the benefit from it. Bad adab, or like we say, bad adab, will block you from benefiting from something. And having good adab with something is really a manifestation of gratitude, a shukr. Because when you are thankful for a thing, Allah will increase you, as he says in the Quran. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَكُمْ. If you are grateful for a thing, Allah will increase you in it. In other words, he will give you more of it. So are you grateful for the little piece of knowledge that Allah is allowing you to be exposed to? If you are truly grateful for it, he will give you more of that thing. In other words, he will increase you in knowledge. Gratitude, a lot of us don't know what gratitude is. We think gratitude is expressing gratitude. And those are two different things. Saying thank you or shukran or I appreciate that or jazakallah khairan. All of these are expressions of gratitude. They're not gratitude itself. Just like you're driving down the highway and you're looking for a city and the sign says exit to that city right here. That sign is not the city. It's indicating which way to get to the city. Likewise, expressions of gratitude is not gratitude. It's expressions of gratitude. Whether you're really grateful or not is a totally different thing. Now, the reality of gratitude is having adab with the thing that you claim to be thankful for. In other words, you use the thing that you're grateful for in the proper way. And I always give the example, and those of you who hear me speak all the time probably get tired of examples like this. But I think it's a good example because if you're the gift giver and you see someone treat your gift like that, the first thing that's going to come to your mind is that the person is not grateful for the gift that I gave them. Say you gave me a thobe or a shirt or a kufi, right? And sometimes I use more vulgar examples, right? Just to drive the point home. right? You gave me a shirt, a kufi, or something, and you come into the masjid, and just to give you a trifling example, you go in the bathroom in the masjid. You gave me this white kufi. You go in the bathroom in the masjid, and you see the kufi that you gave me as a gift. You see it with some feces in it in a trash can in the bathroom. Like, what? And then you see all this toilet paper in the bathroom, stinger bottle and everything. You're like, yo, what happened to that kufi I gave you? Like, what is that? Alhamdulillah, I really appreciate that you gave me the kufi, but I use it to wipe my butt with it. There's toilet paper everywhere. There's water right there. There's thing, what? I like to wipe my butt with kufis. That's an extreme example. Or you gave me some clothes and a spill happened in the masjid, and I used the gift that you gave me to wipe up the spill. Got you got bounty paper towels, you got rags, you got all kind of other things. Why use the new garment that I gave you, the new kufi that I gave you to clean up a spill? You're not using that thing properly, right? That's what you would think, or even a little bit less than that. Oh, good. Forget the trifling white using clothes, wipe up a spill with. You just never see me using it. You gave me a kufi, you gave me a thobe, and you see me every day, and I never have it on. I'm like, this dude don't even never wear what I gave him. You may, depend on what type of person you are, you may ask, you may not ask, you may be like, hey, you didn't like the gift that I gave you? What, did it fit? I'm like, yeah, it fit, but I never wear it. You'll be like, I'm giving that dude nothing no more. Because either I don't use it right or I don't use it at all. Bad manners, ingratitude. And one of the things that block us from knowledge is we be in classes, but we don't know how to be in classes. We ask questions that ain't got nothing to do with the class. We don't have enough self-control to maybe write down the question and ask the question at an appropriate time. No, we want to ask what we want to ask, how we want to ask it. We want to interrupt the flow of the class. All of these things that are common amongst us. We show up late for the class. We talk to others during the class. And I'm using Imam Amin Muhammad's classes as an example. A lot of times, if you've been paying attention for the last year, you see a lot of times he has to, hey, stop all the side talking. Say, hold your questions for last. All of these things are part of adab. And when people don't adhere to those mannerisms, a lot of times they miss out the blessings from the class. Another example I always use is like, you ever go to a movie theater or even at home watching a movie, and right, you always have that one person that they're not really into the movie. They just like the fact that they at the movies. They're not paying attention all the way. So they don't get the popcorn and the nachos and whatever, and they Slurpee before the movie start. They get it, and then by the time they come with all the popcorn and stuff, the movie done started already. And so they're like, yeah, I got popcorn and stuff. Yeah. Right? And so you into the movie. And, yo, what happened? I mean, what happened? Well, it just started. Whatever. You trying to stay focused. And then if you engage, dude, see what happened with this, what happened, that what happened. Like, yo, what happened now? I don't know. I'm talking to you. I missed it. Right? You got people like that. Right? And so they'll disturb you. And just like you got people like in the movie theater, right? There's people like that in class. What did Sheikh say? I missed it. Sheikh is talking. Now you trying to fill him in, right? And then you disturbing the Sheikh. The Sheikh may say it or may not say it, but he was like, y'all two finished? Y'all want to do the class, right? And then you got people that stump the Sheikh. That's what we used to call it. It's a game that people play, people that's usually jealous of the teacher. We used to call it the game Stump the Sheikh. So he's going to always ask questions that's really not beneficial. Usually he knows the answer or he thinks he knows the answer, but he's trying to trip you up or try to show people that you don't really know as much as you know. And so he asks those types of questions, right? We got people like that in the class. All of that's bad adab and more. And so he said he guided them to the etiquettes of attending class until he transformed the masses into theologists. Those who knew their individual obligation and acted accordingly, these students of his time became guided scholars, and the disciples and the upright ones came from everywhere. So he not only just gave information, he taught them how to be in order to receive the information. It's extremely important because a lot of our people don't retain information. You find people asking questions and you'll be amazed at the question. You'll be like, what? I know for a fact I seen you in a class and you went over that information at least X amount of times. But when the reality of the situation happens in his real life, you think he's going to know the answer because he or she been in class before and the information was covered. But when the reality hits them in life, Sheikh, in this situation, what I should do? You're like, what? SubhanAllah, how you not know that? You've been in the class that covered it all the time. They don't retain information. Or if they don't retain it, they don't have the ability to process it, to connect the dots. Okay, this is what was in the book. This is what it means. And this is the real situation that it applies to and how to act on it. A lot of people can't do that. So they keep asking questions that you wonder like, okay, how you not know that? And so part of teaching is not just to give the information. You have to teach students how to be students. And the Sheikh did that. He will come out every Friday night to admonish people as described earlier on, and a large number of people attended these gatherings. Only Allah knows their numbers. He also went out every evening after Asr in order to teach. He does tafsir of Quran, teaching, fiqh, and tasawwuf. He had books he taught from time to time. So in other words, he would give lectures, but from time to time, he would come from a text. He went out to the towns, villages, and territories to benefit and admonish before returning to his residence in Degu. So in other words, he was an itinerant teacher. He wasn't just stationary. He would go, he would move around and teach. Many Muslim delegations visited him from the east and the west, as well as scholars of his time in order to get his blessings and light. He benefited all, and the blessings spread in these territories. The religion became manifest and the people walked by the truth. When he became popular, his followers among the scholars as well as the masses increased. So in other words, the Sheikh had students from amongst the scholars and from amongst the awam, the common people. The people communicated among themselves to emulate him, and Allah protected him against the enemies of his time among the scholars. So in other words, you had evil scholars, and these evil scholars attacked them. And he talks about evil scholars in this book, the book that we're covering in this class. Every scholar of his time supported him affectionately and truthfully, with scholars from every territory aligning with him until he spread the deen. He revived the bright sunnah and it became established in the territories. Then the people of Dunya from the kings and those territories exposed their enmity after they had been honored, venerated, and blessed by his calling, without mentioning the fact that he related with them diplomatically, affectionately, and never stopped them from their desires, and never did he confront them. This is deep right here, because a lot of us experience this in our regular life. Right? We will deal with people. We would have relations with them, help them out. And then later on in the affair, you find out that those people express the most hasad and jealousy. This is what he's saying right here. The people actually benefited from the Sheikh. And then come later on to find out they're the ones who have the most hostility towards them. That's deep. And I know a lot of us experience that. You figure you would be grateful. No, it just makes them hate you more than the one who never met you, never dealt with you, right? And he's saying that the sheikh, even though they had issues, whatever, he never like exposed them, put them on blast, or even address their issues. He would just give them advice or help them however he could, and in other words, he gave them the prerequisites. You know what you're doing is wrong, but whatever. But I'm not going to press you about that. But I'm going to benefit you however I can. So even though you could have put them on blast, you could have exposed them, you could have, confronted them about the evils that they were doing, but they didn't even do that. And then those people expressed the most hostility and jealousy towards you. Subhanallah. Wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Teresa, and my brother, Michael Ellington. So he continued, the only thing that angered them was what they saw as a manifestation of the deen, the revival of what had faded away, and the fear of losing what they are upon of ways of falsehood, secrets, and conjecture. Their authority was based upon contradicting the Sharia. Most of their policies were on the wrong path. So when he explained the way, the fortunate ones got guided to it, and the upright followed it, leaving behind the people of the world among evil scholars and the kings, moving blindly in their transgression. And then he said, their status fell, their business spoiled, and they lost respect, and they lost the respect they had in the eyes of the guided ones. So when the numbers and the popularity of the sheikh and the teachings grew, and people started, adhering to the sunnah and those things that they thought were important before, that all these dunya affairs, that stuff didn't impress them anymore. And the people who had it, they weren't impressive to them anymore. And so when they realized the popularity of the sheikh growing, and they realized that all of the sway that they had over people, that people were impressed by them, and they're not impressed by them anymore, that increased their respect that they had in the eyes of the people, and their grasp that they had over people's intellect and stuff like that was getting weaker, and they saw that. Those kings and scholars started harming the Jamaat, confiscating their wealth, cutting off ties of kinship, and telling the outcasts to rob them on their ways and harm whoever is affiliated to them. The fact being that they were Jamaat who could not confront them, and no one could think that they would afford that, because in most cases the followers are weak people with no knowledge of war, and unfortunately every king who was put in charge of our territory kept on fighting in order to put off the light, meaning the light coming from the shehu. They plotted against the sheikh and his Jamaat by all means of deception and manipulation, just to overpower them. And on that I say, and he has a poem right here. So, and that's the way it usually starts a lot of times. Usually you can see this is a grassroots movement. It wasn't like with the elite. You just common people, weak people who, were ignorant or whatever, but he's training them. So it's not just giving information, you training them, right? And this is the way with us. A lot of us, we're weak. We don't have any authority in the place. We're just simple people. But we're in this training. We're training. That's what it's called. That's like adab, mu'addib, right? It's like one of the words used for discipline, like adab, ta'dib, mu'addib. All these variations of the word adab is not teaching. It's a different word used for that, right? From like the word ilm, the muallim, the teacher, right? Adab it goes kind of like hand in hand with them. It's like rearing, disciplining, training, like when someone goes to the military, the basic training, right? That's like the teaching of the adab, because learning how to be a marksman or whatever you're going to do in the military, you're not going to be able to do it without that basic training and disciplining to get you in line first. See, even they understand that. You don't just join the military. Okay, you're going to be our sniper. Okay, here's the marksman school. No, 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 no. You ain't even ready for all that. You got to go through basic training first. Wa alaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Araqiya and Abdul Rahman. Alhamdulillah. So you have to be taught adab first. Wa alaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Malika. Alhamdulillah. And so once you have that adab, and you have and then you get and then the knowledge is given to you, you retain more, you be able to act on it. But without the adab and knowledge, you have to have respect for it. And having respect for knowledge, that goes, now you say, how do you have respect for knowledge? You know, how does that manifest? Meaning you have respect for knowledge and everything that's connected to it and everything that contains knowledge. You can tell people that have adab with regards to knowledge based upon the way they treat their books, based on even on the way they treat their writing instruments, their pens and their pencils, based upon the way they treat the carriers of knowledge, the human ones, the teachers. Like Imam Amin mentioned not too long ago, he mentioned how you can tell the one who wants to seek knowledge, you know, with the right intentions, because the ones who do it with the wrong intentions will only seek knowledge from somebody famous because they wanted to be said that they sat with such and such and so and so. But the one who really has a sincere desire to seek knowledge and loves knowledge for all of the right reasons, they respect anyone who's carrying knowledge, even the one who has less knowledge than them. And they will learn from one who has less knowledge than them, or who has equal knowledge to them, or who has more knowledge from them. They don't restrict. If you look at the Sahaba the same way, they didn't just learn knowledge from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They learned knowledge from each other. Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sought knowledge from who? Jibril. Jibril is considered a lower rank than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he received revelation from Jibril. Not even that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrated hadith from Sahaba. Sahaba usually narrate hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tamim ad-Dari, he had an experience where he saw many of the signs of the last day. When his ship got shipwrecked on an island, he saw the beast at the Dajjal, all these things, and he narrated it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called the Sahaba and related what had happened on the authority of Tamim ad-Dari. And they call that something in Islam. They call it the one who is higher relating on the authority of one who is lower than them. So even you have an example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's taking knowledge from someone that's lower than him. But without proper training and adab, you miss all that kind of stuff. And so he continued, he says, but as Allah willed it, they died in a short while. They noticed that they could not stop his mission, which was growing in strength, and the masses continued to enter into the religion of Allah in groups. They feared for their authority because it contradicted his mission, and it was contrary to the truth. Sharia does not agree with their authority because they took from their acts of worship what will enable them to occupy their post, hiding under that, performing only salat, fast, and zakat, professing the shahada, but without observing its conditions. In other words, we mentioned what he mentions this more than once. We read another portion where he said that. So in other words, these are outwardly Muslims, right? But, you know, the essence of their personal practices and the practices that these rulers impose upon the people had nothing to do with Islam. They just only manifest the outward aspects of Islam. So you can't just die, oh, you a kafir, because he don't even make salat. They made salat whenever it was visible. Yeah, they did the fast, zakat. They said the shahada. But all of these acts of worship, they nullified them because their conditions wasn't in place. And this is why, and this is really our situation. A lot of us are like that. A lot of us, we make wudu, the conditions of wudu ain't in place. So our wudu be invalid. A lot of us, we make salat, but our conditions of salat is not in place. Like I gave example, I think the other day, many people will pray a salat outside of its time just because it's their break at work. And in their mind, they think that's acceptable. Or they pray and their hour is not covered. All these things condition of salat. You violate the condition, your salat not valid. But this is so common amongst us. We'll fast before the month of Ramadan came in because someone came up with a calculated calendar. I mean, on and on and on. All of these are pillars of Islam, right? And a lot of us are undermining those very pillars. And we lying to ourselves, which is another sickness in our age. We lie to ourselves. We not only lie to other people, we lie to ourselves. We make ourselves believe we're doing something that we're not doing. We'll undermine every single condition of an act and then just go through the act and think that we actually doing the act. Anyway, he said, as for the principles, they are still on that which they found their parents doing. And they did not accept Islam and never claimed it for themselves. Moreover, most of their actions contradict the Quran and the Sunnah and the consensus of the Ummah as it is popularly known. They believed in statements and actions that do not come except from a disbeliever. I mean, 2021. You could never believe this. He talking about like in the late 1700s, 2021. How many statements of disbelief you find coming from Muslims? And then we'll argue with you if you try to correct them. I can see at the clock I'm not going to be able to cover what I intended today. I'm not even going to be able to get to the miracles part. But again, I'm not rushing. I'm just going to pick up where I left off at tomorrow, inshallah. So he continued, he said, this being the case, no wonder manifestation of religion and establishment of the Sharia does not go in line with their happiness. Therefore, they came together and plotted to fight against the Sheikh and his Jama'at without doubting that victory was theirs because of the weakness they saw in the followers of the Sheikh. When it comes to fighting, they consulted themselves and agreed to make trouble to the callers for the callers to Allah and prevent them from admonishing. They also commanded everyone to go back to the practices of their forefathers. I want to keep emphasizing to you that these governors and rulers and kings all claim to be Muslim. But at the same time, they're trying to impose policies that are clearly un-Islamic. And so he continues, he said, we were shocked by the warning from Sarkin Gober, the ruler of Gober, Nafata, on three things, which are he tried to put out these policies that no one else admonished people except for the Sheikh himself. Like, in other words, no one is supposed to give ma'idha or dawah or to admonish, call people back to the Quran and Sunnah except the Sheikh himself, except the Sheikh. Like, no one can teach, no one can give dawah except this one Sheikh right here. None of his students, none of the other Sheikhs, nobody, just the Sheikh. No one should continue as a Muslim except those who were born as Muslim. In other words, if you took Shahada, you go back to the religion of your parents. Whosoever his parents are not Muslim should go back to that which he found his forefathers doing. In other words, if your parents are Muslim, okay, you can continue to be Muslim. But if you took Shahada on your own and your parents not Muslim, you got to go back to the religion of your parents. No one should wear a turban after today, and no woman should wear a khimar to cover her bosom. Because in Surah An-Nur, Surah 24, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the women to let their khimars come over their juyub, their breasts. So your khimar should be long enough not only to cover your head, but the material should be long enough to come down and cover your breasts. That's in Surah An-Nur. He's saying, no. You make sure your khimar ain't that long where it don't cover your breasts. So you see this so-called Muslim ruler, what kind of policies he's laying down. And he's doing this to try to curtail and undermine the authority of the sheikh, because the sheikh is teaching, he's calling back to the sunnah, and women are starting to dress properly. And if you know anything about West African Muslim society, that's a big fitna, even to today. A lot of times the way women dress are not, they're not fulfilling the Sharia requirement. And I'm not talking about the style. There's a lot of styles of hijab. I'm talking about the minimum of what must be covered on women. And a lot of times you find that the dress of the women, regardless of what style, what culture, what tribe, or what country, you find that the way they wear it is not Sharia compliant. And so under the teachings of the Shehu, these women are dressing properly. You're like, no, go back to dressing the way you was dressing before. These decrees were announced in the markets, were attempts to undermine our mission, but Allah protected us from his plot and manipulations, making him die shortly thereafter. When his son Yunfa took over, he did his best, striving with the same purpose. We accepted our situation with equanimity and avoided all confrontations until he attacked Gambina. And we're going to talk about that in depth. But I also want to call your attention when you look at the books, because many people have studied the Sheikh's life, and they put his books and what his teachings in chronological order. And when you get up to this time period, the way they're coming against him, you would think that the Sheikh was like, yo, listen, we about to fight jihad, get ready to strap up. We gotta overthrow corrupt Muslim leadership. This wasn't even part of his discourse. He's just teaching Fard Ayn. But people see what's coming. They see what's coming, right? He's just teaching wudu, salat, zakat, hajj, marriage, buying and selling, or whatever. Just basic Fard Ayn, Fard Kifaya knowledge. He's not talking about, governors and government and siyasa and war, and he's not talking about none of those related things. But look how they're coming up against him. Just like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He killed a number of let me go back. Until he attacked Gambina, a great village of Muslims, by surprise. He killed a number of jurists. This is supposed to be a Muslim. He attacking a Muslim village. He killed a number of jurists and reciters during the day in Ramadan while they were fasting. So when they say reciters, in other words, he killed a bunch of hufaz of Quran, a bunch of hafizes. He killed a whole bunch of them in the month of Ramadan while they were fasting when he raided this village. They confiscated their properties, took their families as captives, and started to scatter books and the Quran, and used the slates. He says slates. He's talking about these boards, right? That they write the Quran on and memorize, and then wash it, and then write their next lesson on it. Took those boards, right? And you started using them as firewood, burnt them, and made fun of the Muslims, saying, bring out what you promised us with or threatened us with if you are truthful. So I'm going to stop right there. We're going to pick up where we left off at tomorrow. But if you're familiar with Professor Bilal Ware or Rudolph Ware, he has a book called The Walking Quran. And he talks about a lot of things, but one of the things that he mentions, like in West Africa, how the Quran is embodied in the individual. A lot of us, we look at the Mus'haf or the text of the Quran as sacred, but we don't treat the human being that's carrying the Quran as sacred. They did. And he chronicles how a lot of West African jihads started when they killed memorizers of the Quran. It was okay, all bets are off. We fighting now, right? And this was the incident. He talks about the Shehu's movement, and he alludes to one incident where this happened and the jihad got kicked off. And this is the incident that we're talking about, inshallah. But we're going to pick up tomorrow, inshallah. I believe Imam Amin just went live. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Let's recite Al-Fatiha for the soul of Sheikh Uthman Danfodio and ask Allah to give the rewards of that recitation to him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.